Hello everybody, and welcome back to the ranch. Doctor Up down here. Today we're going to do a little video showing you the difference between a Series 70 and a Series 80. To do that, I thought what better two pistols to bring out than our two World War II lookalikes. We've got the Auto Ordnance 100th year commemorative and our Essex frame 1911 from our Essex rescue videos. So we'll do a few things here and I'll get right back with you. Okay guys, back with you. What we've done while I was away was I went ahead and completely disassembled the Essex pistol, which is a Series 70. Basically all of the pistols that I've shown you up to this point are Series 70, so there's nothing inside that pistol that is different. And what we'll do is go ahead and start taking this one apart and get into some of the differences between the Series 70 versus the Series 80. Like I say, this Series 70 is nothing unusual. I didn't go ahead and remove the mag release or the trigger just simply because they are the same from one pistol to the other. So to go ahead and do this, we'll start by removing our slide and our standard field strip procedures. Throughout this video, you're going to hear me on this Series 80. It uses a firing pin block. It's just a simple pin that's spring-loaded that pushes up and down. You can see it right here. You're going to hear me refer to that as a firing pin stop, and that's actually incorrect terminology. The terminology for this would be a firing pin block. The firing pin stop is this plate of metal right here that you're all familiar with. And I'm just going to go ahead and put this little piece in at the beginning to correct myself throughout the video instead of going back through and either reshooting or editing it in with captions. But when I'm referring to the firing pin stop, I'm referring to this firing pin block, except for when I am actually dealing with the firing pin stop itself, which is, like I say again, this plate back here in the back. Anyway, I hope that clarifies that. As we do this, the first place we're going to run into with the slides is right here on this one. You'll notice this small little button. This button is what engages the firing pin stop, or actually it is the firing pin stop itself. And we'll see if we can go ahead and disassemble this slide. Now, to do this, because of that stop, you can't just push the firing pin in to remove the firing pin stop. You actually have to engage that button to remove the firing pin stop, and then engage the button to remove the firing pin. Okay, once you've removed the firing pin, I have to have a set of needle nose pliers. Like I say, my big old moose hands are too hard to pull that out. I can't grip a hold of it. But this is what your firing pin stop is made of. You'll notice right off the bat the differences in the firing pins. This is the Series 70, this is the Series 80, and you'll notice the cutout. That's what allows that firing pin stop to move up and down and slide. Once the firing pin stops out, then you can go ahead and remove the ejector. And depending on how stiff it is in there, it should come out. And once that's out, then your slides can be set aside. Now, again, another difference in the ejectors: Series 70 on top, Series 80 on the bottom, has the cutout to allow the firing pin stop to go in and out. Okay, next we'll look at the frame here. Again, I'll put the Series 70 frame on top and the Series 80 frame on the bottom. And you can see on the Series 70 frame, this is all solid metal here, whereas on the Series 80 frame, this is all cut out. And what that allows for is that allows for that lever arm to come up. That lever arm comes up when the trigger is pushed, and it engages on the firing pin stop, which is located right there. So, to get to those parts, we'll go ahead and further disassemble this frame. I'll widen you back out here a little bit. The disassembly of the frame on the Series 80 is going to be no different than the disassembly of the Series 70. What you're going to run into is when you go to push the firing pin, or I'm sorry, the hammer pin and the sear pin out, each pin holds one additional part. Those two parts will be the lever mechanism that you see coming out of the top of the pistol right here. But up to that point, the disassembly is exactly the same. Now, I've obviously not had this pistol apart before, so we'll see how easily it comes apart. Move the grip safety and thumb safety out of the way. Take our shear spring out. Now, what I will try to show you here is the additional parts that are inside. If you look right here, there's an additional leg, an additional part there, back of the trigger bow, the disconnector, the sear, and there's a little additional leg here that comes down and catches the trigger bow. That leg engages this upper leg that comes up out of the frame here. As the hammer is pushed back, you'll see that that leg pops up, and that's what engages the firing pin block. You can see by simply pushing the trigger that pops that up, and the force that pushes it back down is the small spring on the firing pin block itself. Like I say, this piece right here, I'll go ahead here in a second and remove the hammer and the sear out and show you where those parts lay in the frame itself. But I was just trying to give you a little better idea of how that functions by just pushing that up like that. You can see that this bar is pushed up, and that's what pushes the firing pin stop. Alright, I have those two parts in there where I want them to be. Now the question is can I get the camera angle so that you can see how they are in there? If you look, you can see how those parts are set into the frame there. The upper part, which is the part that disengages the firing pin stop, uses the hammer pin, and the lower part, which is touches on the back of the trigger bow, uses the sear and disconnector slot. That's how those two parts go in to the pistol frame. Now, where it becomes a real trick is when you go to put this all back together, because now you have an additional set of holes to line up. But that gives you a hopefully good representation of how those parts are set in there. So, those two additional parts, a different extractor and a different firing pin, and the addition of the firing pin lock and spring make up the additional parts to a Series 80 over a Series 70 pistol. So now I get to try to put the thing back together. I'm not going to burden you with watching me mess with it for the next 20 minutes while I try to get the sear in, but I'll be back as soon as I get it back together. A little something I ran into during the reassembly that I think kind of warrants mention. On the Series 70, when you're going to remove the firing pin stop, all you have to do is just push the firing pin in to below the level of the stop and then remove it off. With the Series 80, what you run into is this situation right here, where that firing pin stop will actually hold the firing pin down into the slide, leaving it projecting out the front. In some respects, that's nice because your firing pin's held in and it just allows you to go ahead and slip the stop in. And then once the stop is in place, just re-engage the firing pin stop and firing pin will come back into location. Now, one thing you can't do though without going ahead and engaging that firing pin stop is push that in and out. That helps a little bit with the assembly. The problem is that the spring tension on that is quite substantial. It almost takes 3 hands and a buddy's toe to kind of hold everything in place while you're pushing that firing pin in far enough to allow that firing pin stop to engage the firing pin inside the slide like that. So anyway, I just thought I'd mention that to you while I had it here readily available. Another item of note with the reassembly, most of the time you'll see me just leave the slide lay on the tabletop and I'll just take the frame and slide it on. The problem you run into with this is most of the time you can see right here that the lever that engages the firing pin stop will fall down into place. So what you'll run into if you do assemble it that way is as you slide it on, you'll get to this point and it'll stop. And just simply push that leg back down into place. And once you've done so, then you can go ahead and continue with the slide, moving it into position so that you can get your slide stop in place. Then beyond that, just your regular assembly methods. Okay guys, well, we're back. And as you know, it's not my first time at the rodeo to take a 1911 apart and put it back together, but let's just say took 3 minutes to put the Series 70 back together, took over 10 to put the Series 80 back together. Just because of those additional parts and a little bit different processes to get them back together, lining up the extra holes, getting the extra parts in place. Like I say, for a big-handed guy like me, it makes it really difficult. It's good to have a set of needle nose pliers or a set of tweezers handy. Anyway, the difference between the Series 70 and the Series 80 in 1911. Hope you guys find this interesting. We'll talk to you later. Have a good day.